Join me in welcoming the founder of one of India's leading beauty and personal care brands, Nykaa. What was the 0 to 1 to know that acha, this is working, now we'll do this for a long time?
But we realized that you had to focus on a category with a very clear consumer insight and then build that out. For the first couple of years, we were just trying to figure out what's really happening. We invested in molds very early and really gave us an edge in the market. And we recently just sold a larger chunk to Nykaa for... Yeah, I keep on saying I'm a Marwadi from Calcutta. So for us, every day when you go to work, when you come back, you should have made some money. Right? And if you don't make money, you don't sleep at night.
How do you stay ahead of the curve would be very interesting to understand. Hello. Before we get started with this episode, I quickly wanted to share that we are now a part of the Zerodha Media Network. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host Jivraj, and today I'm back for another phenomenal episode. Join me in welcoming the founder of one of India's leading beauty and personal care brands, Nykaa. Thank you so much, Suyash, for joining me today. Very excited to be hosting you.
Thanks, Jivraj. Thanks for hosting me. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm so glad to be doing this because in all the times that I've gotten a chance to meet you, I've learned so much from you. And I've always gone back thinking that, hey, Suyash is this amazing, distinct founder that I can learn so much from. And I'm glad that, so many more people get an opportunity to do that. The scale of the brand that you've built with the kind of unique choices, bootstrapped, then you got a strategic acquisition after which you've grown so significantly, how you focus on profitability, all very interesting choices. And the second part where I'm so excited is you're the first Calcutta founder I'm hosting. And the Calcuttan in me who's, born and brought up, grown up here, is very excited to, bring up a Calcutta brand, show to the world that, hey, while we talk about Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, there's so much happening in Calcutta also and you're championing it. So thank you so much for, again, being here. The purpose behind the next 60 minutes is very clear. We want to understand how you've gone ahead and built beauty and personal care. Nykaa is, scaled up to 700 crores gross value. And it's been phenomenal to do that. If somebody else in the audience wants to build a brand, how can they achieve it? Let's start from the very beginning. In 2018, when not much is happening in the digital scene, brand scene, how do you think of creating a brand? What's the story there? And you come from a real estate background, right? Not from the brand scene, not from an HUL. How did the idea come about? You built with your wife. What was the story like? Please tell us all of that.
So I think the main idea came from Anisha, right? Like she would actually go abroad and buy a lot of beauty and personal care products, which were expensive, luxury, global, right? And she was like, I want this quality in India. And then every time some relative would go abroad and she would like, please get me this, please get me that. And, and it used to be a hassle, telling people to get stuff, right? And there was always a massive gap in India with the same quality and experience in products that you get abroad, right? And this was back in 2018 where the D2C boom hadn't really kicked in. Yeah. And, and we were very new. Like, I don't come from the space at all. Like, I was selling capital goods. And suddenly, because we wanted to do something interesting in Calcutta, we started, Nykaa, right? And, the idea of online really started coming from me being in America. So I went to Indiana for my undergrad. And I was there for 4 years. And I used to get a very small pocket money, let's say, right? And there was no savings. The only saving I used to have is the $1,000 I used to get for textbooks. And I used to buy a lot of textbooks online. I used to buy it for about $150, $200 and basically get the $800. And I used to party with it because that was the only pocket money I had extra, right? I used to come back to Calcutta for my holidays and I realized that there is no online ecosystem, right? There is nothing called online. And I used to be like, where do I get all my stuff from? And used to always kind of make me ponder that what can we do in India? Can we build this in India, right? And this was back in 2008, 2009. And that thought really remained with me, right? I came back, joined the family business of real estate. And then finally, once we met Anisha, we thought we wanted to start a business. And we wanted to start for fun, right? It wasn't supposed to be a business. It was supposed to be a fun venture where we have fun, right? We didn't know that it can be a very large-scale business back then. It was more like, jo karna hai, wo interesting karna hai, fun karna hai, and we want to entertain ourselves. Yeah. So we started thinking about what can we do differently, and we realized that the packaging needs to be cute. You need to put a lot of colors in the packaging. The packaging should be very distinct because what people look for in beauty is a beauty in packaging also, not just the product itself, right? The entire experience should be very interesting, right? So after a lot of thought process, we found the first creative agency that helped us design Dot and Key, think about the concept of Dot and Key, and then finally create Dot and Key for us, right? And we launched in this website platform called OpenCart, right? This was Shopify was barely coming up, and we did not know any other platform, right? And that's the only platform we figured would work for us. Now I say it was junk, but that's what we started on, right? Every product that we are launching had a very unique purpose, right? For example, we launched a swim spray, which is basically to protect your skin from skin tanning, chlorine tanning. We had a underarm roll-on back then, which also had depigmentation properties. We had a hand cream and a sanitizer 2 years before COVID. So all our products were very distinct and it had a very clear need gap, right? Because the underarm product was not available in India. The swim products were the first of its kind because Anisha used to swim and she used to try and find something that prevents the skin from tanning, right? So it was coming from a very clear consumer need. And the hand cream and sanitizer, because you just don't need a hand cream, right? You need something that cleanses your hands also. So a 2-in-1 product, right? So, and a hair sunscreen, because sunscreen is very big today, but back in the day, your hair also kind of gets impacted because of sun, right? Extra exposure from sun. Yeah. We thought that needs protection too, right? Yeah. So the entire thesis of the brand was products which were great quality, but solve very distinct need of the consumer, right? And that's why the brand Dot and Key came into being. We try to identify the missing dots of your skincare regime and give the solution or key to it.
Oh, lovely. I didn't know that's how the name came, but no, super exciting. I think, before the episode, I was asking some of my friends why they use Dot and Key, and everybody said, very interesting products, affordable, very good colors, very distinct, and I've been using them for a while, so I love them. And that actually, I think, stands out. Talk to us about maybe some of these more 0 to 1 choices, right? Like, how did you get the colors right? How were you doing market research? What was early response like from customers? Because back in the day, like when, logistics was not as solved, customers were not as willing to adopt new products. I'm guessing marketing was also not as easy or, not as crowded as it is today, and the customer being willing to try more products. What was the 0 to 1 to know that, acha, this is working, now we'll do this for a long, long time?
I think it's a great question. I think for the first couple of years, we were just trying to figure out what's really happening because we don't come from the space. We don't understand the space as well. We don't know digital as well, right? So we were just trying to figure what do consumers want. We didn't even know what category sizing was, right? So we were just launching products which we felt that consumers might like. And we were just trying to create a niche in the market, right? By products that no one else was really launching in the Indian market, right? So we found these niches, built these niches for 2 years and realized that numbers hi bhad nahi rahe. So the reality was that you try and test for the first couple of years when you start out, and it's always very difficult because everything is very uncertain around you. You're building out your team, you're trying to figure out products best of your knowledge, but your consumer insighting is typically not as strong as you would want it to be to build a 1,000 crore company or a 2,000 crore company, right? So for us, it was just pleasing our souls for the 2 years and giving us a kick that we did own a beauty company back then. Sure. And I think that's what we were doing for the first couple of years. What made us stand apart as a brand, because even though you had niche products, you had to sell them. You had to sell them to the consumer. Was probably the color of the packaging, because we realized to be distinct, you had to have packaging which was very different. So we made sure that the color of the packaging was pastel, very cutesy, because anything good always sells. Second, I think we invested in molds very early. The good thing is we had a great advisor in my father-in-law, because they have a beauty company that invest in molds early. So your brand gets very distinct early, right? So I don't know why did we take the leap of it. We actually invested in real molds back then that made our brands really stand out, made our products really visible, and really gave us an edge in the market when we were starting out, right? Even though the categories are very niche, so the numbers always numbers were limited because the category size was very limited. But the reality is that it helped us become a tiny little brand that people knew about, right? And it gave us a head start to understand the business a little better, understand the category a little better, right? Sure. Till the pivot that came called COVID.
Yeah. And then COVID, everybody realized digital adoption is happening. Everybody was using these products. But let's maybe take a step back and come to the present, right? Like if you can talk to us about the scale at which Dot & Key is at, so that all of us in the audience can envision how big you are, how many SKUs, what are the channels, how large, everything that can help us imagine scale. And then maybe we'll go into deeper into, okay, these are the SKUs, why specific ones, what the consumer wants. That'll be super interesting.
I think right now we are about a 700 crore GMV revenue. I think 3 years ago, we were at about 50. So we've grown about 14x in terms of GMV revenue in the last 3 years. I think what changed for us, I think let's go back to the journey of what changed for us, right? During COVID, I think we realized very early that people weren't going out. People weren't using color cosmetics. People weren't spending money anywhere because there were no avenues to spend. And personal care was actually an essential commodity, essential that the government allowed us to sell. And we learned that very early in COVID. So we really used this opportunity to really go out to the consumer, reach out, market to them. And because we were slightly premium, people sitting at home really bought our products and we communicated well. We were lucky enough to launch a few products right before COVID. So I think that phase of COVID, we actually scaled about 8x in a matter of 6 months, right? And that's when we realized, okay, we are in a very different ball game right now. We aren't a small brand where we are having fun, right? We are a slightly larger brand where we are having fun, but with a teensy-weensy kind of pressure of really building something out of this now because the consumers told us so. I think what we learned well was we had to bank on the right product because early on in our journey, we realized that we were spending our monies across all products, but we realized that you had to focus on a category with a very clear consumer insight and then build that out. So our early and first breakthrough came from serums as a category because we were one of the first online to really start selling serums. So consumers were actually seeing serums through Instagram globally. And because we were first in India, we were delivering what they were looking for. We got immediate success, right? We actually pivoted, at least on Nykaa, to then the number 1 or number 2 serum brand, right? From a brand and from founders knowing very little about the industry to being number 1, number 2 in the category give us a massive kick, right? And got us very excited and gave us the acknowledgement that we could really grow this into a big brand.
Yeah, no, so that's super exciting. In terms of channels, now all the new age brands, the conventional wisdom is start with your own website, then go to these marketplaces, then you figure out offline eventually, right? Now you've seen that entire cycle, especially with Nykaa. You must have now have you have retail presence as well. What is your channel split now? And especially with, QCOM coming around, what do you think a new founder starting in digital, because everybody's talking about CACs going up. So digital spends are going up, which means acquiring a customer is very, very costly. How do you recommend building a brand in today's age? And how have you gone about scaling different channels for Dot & Key?
Great question, Jivraj. I think the answer lies in understanding your consumer very well, right? So we're talking about CACs, we're talking about channel split. But before that, let's understand what the consumer really wants and what is the brand's responsibility.
Sure.
Right? The consumer really wants something that they've been wanting and the brand should know without the consumer telling you that. Okay. Right? So in our case, we realized that because people were going out, sunscreens could be a very big rage, right? Sure. So we over-indexed on sunscreen using a consumer insight. The consumer insight that we used when we were talking about sunscreens was that it's typically thick and greasy. So when people use it outside, they didn't feel like using it because it made them sweat more. What we did was we just focused on little thin, very light sunscreens, which also had a cooling impact, like Thanda Thanda Cool Cool from Amitabh Bachchan. Yeah. That ad, I think we all know about that tail, right? Navratna tail. So we thought that that's a very cool idea. What if we put into a product which actually requires a little bit of cooling because it's used outdoors? So we started innovating a lot in our products, right? Using these very sharp consumer insights, right? And I think these insights gets picked up and consumers start searching for you, right?
Yeah.
And consumers start searching for you in all channels, in all beauty channels online. For us, it was online. For a lot of brands, it might be offline, online, both. But for us, it was online. And it typically starts from Nykaa because that's where beauty really gets discovered. And then you move on to Amazon, Flipkart, and all the other channels. And typically, it all depends on where you're spending media because each channel has a media saliency, as I call it. Depends on where you spend and where you're trying to get the consumer and what is the genre of consumers you're looking for is the channel you go to. For example, on Nykaa, it's premium, luxe consumers who are ready to try a new product because they are skin aficionados in a way, right? So it's very easy to scale a brand on Nykaa to start out with, especially when you're differentiated, cutesy, slightly premium as a brand. Amazon's fairly premium as a platform. It has customer bases from cities who can afford stuff. So I think Amazon's next. But Amazon's a very search-based platform. So you have to really spend a lot of marketing dollars to build something on Amazon. And beauty as a platform, beauty as a category is very difficult to build on Amazon because there is a lot of competition. You have to spend a lot of dollars to really build it. And it's a very search-based platform, right? So for a new brand, actually building that search salience is really difficult on Amazon, right? So I think you focus on Nykaa, then you focus on Amazon, and then once your pricing is in sync with, say, a Flipkart, etc., then you go to a Flipkart and other marketplaces like Purple and Flipkart, right? But if you ask me, these are the mainstay marketplaces like Nykaa and an Amazon. Quick commerce is great, but quick commerce is great for scaled brands, right? Because when you're new and starting out, it's really difficult to build on a quick commerce because you need consumers to come and want you from before quick commerce. Based. Absolutely. So before quick commerce starts working for you. Correct. So the reality is that quick commerce sounds great. It's growing, which is phenomenal, but you really have to be scaled before you can enjoy the quick commerce growth. So I would say that you really build the brand off platform. That's what we did. We built the brand off platform. We thought that we don't want to build a brand on a specific platform. We first need to find who our consumer is, educate the consumer about our brand, our products, and then go to each channel and start building that out, right? So that's what we did. We made sure that whenever we communicated off platform, and then people started really going on different platforms and buying it in general. It started from Nykaa, then Amazon, and then Flipkart and the others. That's how I look at it.
Awesome. No, that's super helpful. I think that's a complete playbook to, on a channel by channel basis as to how to launch. Let's maybe double click on the products. A lot of what I'm hearing is that you were early to market with a lot of these products, which is usually difficult because most brands are otherwise following the flavor of the season. Like a lot of people talking about sunscreen now, a lot of people launching serums now, whatnot, right? So everybody is following the herd, whereas you went ahead and created the market for many products. Is there science to this? Like I want to understand, like when you're internally as a company thinking about new product development, this is what we want to launch. And now I'm guessing cost of failure is even higher for you, right? You're an established brand. People expect something from .nk. How do you plan in advance and how do you stay ahead of the curve? Would be very, very interesting to understand.
Yeah, it's very interesting. हम product बनाना शुरू करते हैं from the consumer.
Okay.
You need to create something that the consumer wants. And what is that thesis of yours, of the consumer? What is that understanding of your consumer that you're launching a product, right? I just give an example of our sunscreen. Right? Like of our cooling sunscreen, which is fluidic in nature. So when we started that product, we were the first in market, right? No one had that product yet. Now it's become a category. Yeah. There are like 30 plus brands having a similar genre of product, correct, right? I think the second piece is, second product that we launched, which is very different, is probably a barrier repair moisturizer, right? So it's a moisturizer, but the entire thesis was that people started using actives these days. You see niacinamide, vitamin C, and all these names kind of flowing across. And with influencers coming in, a large part of the country starts getting educated because of these conversations, right? But the reality is that if you use too much of it, especially when you don't know the ingredient percentage, etc., it might affect your skin, right? Which leads to irritation, patchiness, right? So barrier repair product comes in and soothes your skin and makes it better again, right? So it's a complete cycle of understanding what the consumer wants at the right time. And now barrier repair moisturizer itself is now a category.
Yeah.
It's no longer just a product that exists there, right? So I think understanding at what cycle the consumer is in, how your product will add incremental value, and why is it different from from competition, right? Plus, how do you make it interesting and sensorial for the consumer? Like, it can't just be the product works great, phenomenal. You have a 6-month head start from the next competition. So what do you do now? So you now package it well. You communicate. You basically have a cutesy packaging, which makes it very convenient for the consumer to use, and you give it a layer with a very smooth usage, no greasiness. So you with the sensorial of usage, the touch, feel. We can't use fragrance, but that would have been great, like, probably 5 years ago, but you can't do fragrances anymore. But sensorials really help consumer to use the product better. And I feel that as long as you can master sensorials plus the clear reason why someone wants to use the product and do it before anyone else, will constantly be an innovator and a disruptor and create categories. And that's what we do at Dot & Key, but constantly finding the next big thing we want to build for the consumer, something that they themselves don't know yet.
Yeah. Well, that's lovely. I think that goes to show all the conventional advice of listening to your consumer is actually showing up in practice. So I'm loving this. Let's talk about marketing for a bit, right? Like, a lot of people mention, and everybody's confused, right? Should we spend on performance? Should we spend on influencers? Should we spend on brand? Should we grow organically? Should we, spend money from day zero? How has the journey with Dot & Key been for marketing specifically, right? Like, if you had to talk about splits from that lens, like how much do you spend on performance for specific categories also? I'd love to understand that because again, it feels like Dot & Key has cracked the influencer bit, it's cracked the brand piece as well. It's known for something as well as your, ROAS, etc. At least in our private conversations, you mentioned are very, very high. So talk to us about that maybe.
Yeah, I think fantastic question. I think one team every day, like the growth team in our organization, always in our monthly review meetings keep on saying, we beat our target, right? But then I tell them that I think your target's changed because you beat your target. Now the new target's something else. So the reality is, I think the targets keep on changing, and what the organization needs to build keeps on changing. CACs keep on changing, right? I think CAC is a very debatable subject. Acquisition is a very debatable subject because I think everyone talks about CAC and how to reduce CAC. Meta's charging us a lot. Google's charging us a lot. I think Amazon's very expensive. But the reality is CAC's in the brand's hand. What CAC really does is when it places multiple products together, what does the consumer themselves choose? And based on that, you get your ROASes, right? If they choose your brand, then you get the sale, or else a competing brand
gets
it, right? And the reality is that that we feel that the world's flat, but the world's not flat because we have a lot of levers in our hand to build something different to reduce our CAC, right? So if you look at it, if you build a brand which is very strong, with high loyalty, with very distinct value proposition, and visually very appealing, especially for the youth today, your CACs will lower over time. And the reality is CACs always start high and kind of go lower and lower. But it all depends on the 4-5 points that I just mentioned before. And also, I think you need to focus on the media mix. So the reality is that at different stages of your growth journey, your media mix need to change. So if you keep on spending on just performance, when you become a 100 crore company, you're making a mistake. You need to start spending on brand building. You need to start spending on influencers. You need to start spending on branding activities on platforms. Yeah. You need to start seeing your business differently because just lower funnel does not help you reduce CAC. Your entire funnel needs to be more efficient and your awareness levels need to go up. Your consideration level needs to go up for your lower funnel to start performing for you and the CAC to start going down. And how I look at CAC is, the basic benchmark we have is my overall marketing costs going down year on year, right? As a percentage of total revenue. And as long as directionally that's happening as a percentage, I think your business is probably doing well because all the branding activity and the spends and the product that you've created is helping reduce that over time. Sure. So it always starts high, becomes much lower as long as you're building something strong. And I think that's the best benchmark or indicator of how the business is going. And we should take a slightly more broader view when we look at CAC than, what happened today or what happened this week or what happened this month, because based on competition level, discounting level, competition based activities from other categories. For example, for beauty, clothing is an adjacency. When clothing brand kind of increases its spends, beauty CAC also starts going up fundamentally. So we need to be very clear on the fact that the environment's very dynamic. But year on year, as you build your brand, you figure out that there are times where the CAC's high, times the CAC's low. So you need to start harnessing that very effectively. So I think that's what I would do if I want to build a successful brand beyond the initial 4-5 crore a month number.
Sure. No, that's super, I think, detailed, because a lot of people talk about, decreasing CACs, but I think with .key also the fact that you were bootstrapped doesn't give you the luxury that you can lose money on your first order. You can continue losing money for a long amount of time, because the playbook now is, you build a great product, you spend amazing marketing dollars, you lose money for a long time because you're venture backed, and then you can recover money later. You didn't have that, right? So talk to us about how did you make the capital efficiency choice as well, right? Because you have to make decisions, especially till, let's say, maybe the Nykaa strategic came in. You had to maybe make these decisions. What were those like?
Very interesting question. Yeah, I keep on saying I'm a Marwadi from Calcutta. And
tell us what that means. I don't think everybody understands that.
So a Marwadi from Calcutta is someone who understands their monies and their numbers.
Sure.
So for us, every day when you go to work, when you come back, you should have made some money. Right. And if you don't make money, you don't sleep at night. Right. So we are absolutely dhanda focused and absolutely clear that we want to make money every time we go. Right. And, I was very clear in this business that we are building this profitably, and we are building this to make a lot of money in terms of the bottom line, not just the top line, right?
Sure.
And the basic thought process is that if you're not making money, why are you doing this in reality, right? And I think it's very easy to take VC-backed money, PE-backed money. But ultimately for a consumer business, it's better not to take the PE, VC-backed money, because once you get into the cycle of raising money, you constantly do this again and again and again, and you spend more time raising your capital than actually building something or understanding the consumer better, right? And I think that piece really differentiates a brand which is not raised a lot of money and are capital efficient, right? I think freedom of choice. I personally feel that I want to build my business, my brand according to what I want, not what VCs or PE funds like to build. Because if today I know if my bottom line is positive and I have enough money in the bank and enough runway, because unlimited runway, not even enough runway, I can just take the choices I want, which is beneficial for the brand in the longer term than shorter term, right? I might build a category which is harder in the beginning, but tough in the long term, with very, very difficult for the brand to kind of compete with me or build that after I've built it, right? It helps you build a lot of moats in the business, which you otherwise can't when you're VC backed, right? Because you are so focused on growth that you don't really see nuances as much anymore, right? I think fundamentals of business, when you're really building a business, I think fundamentals are very, very important, right? And the fundamentals need to percolate into the entire team. So the DNA of the organization needs to be in the entire team. The moment you think bottom line first, profitably first, the team starts thinking with you and your organization double downs on it, right? So every decision you take is not just about top line growth, it's about top line and bottom line maximization, right? And I think it's always great as a founder and that you are running a profitable business and you can sleep well at night. And not in that situation that you don't know how do you grow the business and how do you raise your next capital. And I think I kind of completely believe in this. So just for viewers' knowledge, I think we bootstrapped the business till 2021. For 3 years, we bootstrapped our business, right? And we just invested 1 crore from our own capital. And we got the first exit from Nykaa then, and we pocketed 46.9 crores. And we recently just sold a larger chunk to Nykaa for 265 crores. So we already about 500 plus X on what we invested in our capital.
No, that's phenomenal. I mean, especially in the market that you are in, the competitive space where all others have the luxury of having raised VC money to make the tough choice, at least seemingly, of being independent, being bootstrapped, and continuously like fighting your own battle, profitably growing, is just insanely great. And I'm glad that we have more people like you talking about this, because otherwise I think the market is flooded by VC money and VC founders talking about over glorifying what it means to raise VC capital. But even in my chats with you when we invest together, right? I know you mention, okay, what are they doing profitably? Tell me their numbers. How much money are they burning? So I love that mindset, and thank you so much for echoing it so vocally. I think it's very, very important. But it must be tough also, right? I'm sure there must have been like offers on the table. There must have been choices. You must have gotten like, you can always make this trade-off. What was it that kept you on your course? Or were you always very clear कि नहीं VC तो नहीं raise करना?
So, yeah, I think let's get to reality, right? I think first 3 years of our business, so we have a family business, right, where there are many more stakeholders.
Correct.
They're into real estate, right? For someone who buys land, spending on something very notional or investing in something very notional is very difficult.
Yeah.
Right? Beyond a certain amount, they're like, यार हम हवा पे पैसे लगा रहे हैं.
Correct.
Right? So it would be very difficult to convince them to put in more money, right? So I think that concept really kept us very frugal from the beginning, right? And I think this learning which we had in the beginning really helped us over time, right? In tough times when you don't have enough money in the bank, or you're negotiating with potential strategics. I think the concept of, yeah, we can do it because we've done it till now, which very few have done, is always a great feeling.
Awesome. I think we've covered a bunch of ground. We've understood how the marketing happens, how new product development happens, how CACs happen, how do you split channels. Now let's understand the back of the things of the product, right? Like we see the great product as a consumer, but what goes into making that product will be very interesting to hear, because you mentioned in the past, right, in conversations that you're very thorough with R&D, a lot of time goes into it. What happens behind the scenes?
I think to get repeat buyers and to really build a brand, you need phenomenal products, right? Which are very consistent. Mm-hmm. So for Dot&Key, we have an R&D lab in-house, right? With very senior folks kind of manning them and helping us create those products and helping us get those visions to reality, right? I'll give you an example. We were launching a product in April this year, and the product was again a first in India. Right. So it took us 9 months to reach the final product from the first thought. It took us 54 iterations, and we tested about 1,000 people.
Wow.
So it took us 9 months from thought to product launch, with 6 months only on the formulation itself. Right. Wow. So I think the detailing of how does, like, when you use it on multiple consumers, a lot of feedback comes. And you think that you're creating a product for a X skin type, but that's not enough, because people have, I don't know how many types of skin, right? And probably something that you have, it absorbs differently in different people. So how do you create a product to be relevant to a larger number of people, right? And that is what we do through R&D. Mm-hmm. I think the second piece is consistency, right? Like, then the biggest challenge brands have is that they don't have an in-house R&D lab, because of which consistency becomes a problem over time. So even though they have a successful product, it's very difficult to sustain the success over time, right? And that's why it's very important to have a R&D lab in general.
Sure. I think that is super helpful, because a lot of people say that new age brands are just, marketing companies because they don't spend enough time either manufacturing or thinking about the product. But I think, when founders like you emphasize on building like strong R&D teams and spending time on the product, I think it just paves the way for future founders. Let's maybe also double click on the things that are not spoken of in consumer brands, which is, let's say, things like data, right? How do you leverage data? Because, all social media platforms are throwing data at you. People talk about retention. How do you make sure you're using data to your advantage? And I know you're super passionate about this, so would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Jivraj, I personally feel that D2C brands have overload of data.
Yeah.
There is so much of data that it becomes impossible beyond a point to process that much of data.
Yeah.
So I personally feel that instincts are way more powerful than data. Data helps you validate stuff, but instinct is what helps you differentiate things, right? For our products also, when you have an option between 4 products, data tells us X, but instincts tell us Y. And then we end up launching the Y product, which is successful because data will only validate till a certain level, right? But instinct is what tells, it takes a lot more things into account to take a decision.
Yeah.
And typically instinct decisions are much better, right?
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, so whenever we launch a product, right, I personally feel a brand is like a film star and a product is like a movie. So one hit movie really puts the brand into a different light, right? Like the film star. And if you have enough successful launches, you become Shah Rukh Khan, right? Or a consistent brand that can stay forever. For example, we launched a tinted sunscreen in April, and we had an option of pouring in a glow range. And typically glow range in India is always successful, very large, data makes it look phenomenal, right? But the team said, yaar, वापस boring चीज कर रहे हैं अपने कुछ interesting करता है कि consumer feel excited about it. So we took a niche category, niche ingredient, and we launched it. And it was phenomenal. Like the consumers loved it. And it was trending on Instagram for over 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So I think consumers also want things which are distinct and not always data backed. I think the second thing about data is always tells you things which has already happened. It does not tell you things that are going to happen, right? So I think data is very lopsided and one-sided in its approach, right? So I think as founders, we also have to be very rounded in terms of how we look at data and where we should and where we should not.
Sure.
And that's how I look at it.
Oh, that's lovely. I think that completes the loop on that piece very, very well. I have this, fascinating question जो मुझे really जानना है. I'm from Calcutta, and I've realized कि यहाँ पे कभी-कभी talent problem हो सकती है, right? And you built a consumer brand from Calcutta. Talk to us about the team piece. Like, how have you found the right people? How have you trained them? What has gone into retaining them? How does that piece come along for the company?
Yeah, for building Key, we were learning ourselves. So the reality was that we were building a team while learning ourselves. So I think we made like 1,000 mistakes while hiring because we were not clear who we wanted to hire, why we wanted to hire. We didn't have a KRA KPI in place when we started out. But I think over time we learned that fairly well, and we realized that Calcutta has a lot of talent, but category or industry specific knowledge was very limited, but the IQ level was very high. Right?
We channelized.
Yeah. So what we were able to do is we're typically very close to our team, right? We work very closely with them, and we get to know everything what's going on in their life as well, right? So when you're working so close together and really building the organization together, they tend to learn very fast because they already high IQ. They're emotionally attached to the business because it's giving them vision for themselves, right? Or what they can be. Otherwise, what they can't imagine, right? Most people in my organization now, they couldn't imagine that this is what their potential could be, right? They could be wanted nationally across all BPC companies that wanted to hire them, right? And when they were in Calcutta, they were just doing a petty or menial roles that weren't doing justice to who they were, right? So I think talent is available. Channeling is something that founders or entrepreneurs need to do. And I think the ecosystem, Calcutta, can be developed very fast.
Yeah. And it's happening, I think, thanks to folks like you. But I completely agree कि talent तो बहुत है. It usually migrates because opportunities are few. But now opportunities also exist. So I love that. Let's get to the meat now. And we probably should have started here. But everybody would love to know that, this acquisition piece. Outside in seems like the fancy thing that's happened. Talk to us about how does a bootstrap company in the first place get an acquisition offer? Who all were on the table? Like, how did this come about?
For us, I think we scaled as a brand fairly well. Our products were differentiated. Brand was very distinct. So a bunch of large organizations, consumer brands, consumer companies were actually eyeing us for a very long time because we were not the mundane brand or not a Me Too brand that could be replicated very easily, right? Because I think we have a bunch of patents for our designs. Which are very distinct. So there was a uniqueness. The name's very distinct. So people love our name. It's very memorable is what folks tell us, right? So that's why a bunch of brands approached us. But we realized that not all brands will give us the same benefit, long-term gains by letting them be a strategic partner with us. I think for us, Nykaa was the best choice because they are online first. They understand brand building very, very well. I think Falguni herself is a brand builder. And plus, I think what we did was we made sure that we weren't going for the best offer, because the reality is that you're still a brand builder. You want to build your own brand yourself with the help of others, but you still want to do it yourself with complete autonomy, which we were getting with Nykaa, right? Versus other brands, there was acquisition, but we might be a brand which gets thrown in the corner, might be a brand that don't really care about in the longer term, might be a brand which they feel we acquired to kill. Because that's what typically happens, or might be a brand where we don't get the support or we don't get heard as much as we want, right? So the reality is that you want to find the right partner for yourself, not just an investor. So I call them, because it's more like marriage, because you want to be with them for the next 3, 4, 5 years. So you need to find the right set of folks who you want to be with for that many number of years, right? So I think that's how I would look at it. I think for us, we got approached by them, because the reality is that when investors approach you, you get to kind of dictate the valuation. You have an upper hand when you're doing the negotiation. And you always have the sense of pride that you're being wanted, at least for the work you're doing, right? And that's not measurable. It's priceless.
I love that. What happens in a negotiation like this? Not many people in India have gone through an experience like yours, an acquisition of this scale. What are things to keep in mind when you are in such a situation?
I think keep your calm. I think because there's a lot going on. You're working with lawyers, investment bankers, and a lot of high profile folks are really doing the negotiation with you. So I think best is to be very clear on what you want out of it. Are you getting those things which are priority for you? So I would actually jot down all those points that you're looking for, prioritize it, and then start negotiating with what you want the most, and let the other points go, right? Because the reality is that you're doing the strategic not just for the money, right? For us, we were doing the strategic because firstly, the brand gets a good home. And I personally felt that we didn't understand the business enough. So we would ourselves become entrepreneurs, because I feel an entrepreneur does not just make a business makes an entrepreneur, right? So we wanted that aspect from it as well. And I think that's why we went ahead with the acquisition.
Sure. How does it feel when you get that money? Like, what was the feeling on that day when those 50 crores hit your account?
I think it feels like a milestone. The fact that you were able to, or we were able to, me and Anisha both were able to build something meaningful. I think that validation was great. But the fact that money hitting didn't really change anything. Because the passion for brand building was always passion for brand building. Money is just a milestone in the entire process. And that's what we felt the whole time. But actually being in the market, completely killing it in terms of numbers, in terms of bottom line, I think meeting a bunch of very interesting folks and really upskilling yourself in terms of how you see the business and how you look at the industry in general. I think that was the biggest gains that we really got out of it.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I think personally also, I think I first met you in 22 when you mentioned like this has happened. And then when I met you last year also, you were equally passionate and, like at the business that we've grown so much. And that passion just shows every time I talk to you also. How's it been with Nykaa? I mean, you've seen the IPO journey as well. It feels like, of course, it's this large company in new age, built in an interesting manner. What has that experience been like post-acquisition?
I think the experience has been great. I think they have the best ecosystem for beauty online, right? They have a lot of consumer data. I think they have very smart folks, right, who understand beauty as an industry very well. They know brand building very well, right? And as people, I think the entire Nykaa family, they're very, very interesting people to be around, right? So I think for us overall as individuals, last 3-4 years have been very enriching. I think we've learned how to build an organization. We've learned how to build a sharper brand. I think because Nykaa is a listed company, we also understood how to build the brand profitably, right? And while growing at one of the fastest pace that the space has seen at our scale, right? And I think for any brand, I think this this is a dream come true, and we feel quite proud of our relationship.
That's lovely. I think that's the ideal situation from an acquisition, right? Like it worked out well. You've grown multifold since, and you're as happy as it seems. So that's lovely to know. We've covered a lot of ground on the company itself, right? Now, if I had to understand your opinion on, let's say, for future, you angel invest, you talk to multiple young founders as well. If I had to ask you, I'm a young person who wants to build a personal care brand. The market looks competitive. How do I go about building something in today's day and age?
I think it all needs to come with an idea which is differentiated,
Sure.
and that fire in the belly to create something. Because I do feel that the fire to do something is the biggest force that you can have. And with that clear idea of what you want to build, right? I think there's always space. The space is massive. It's growing the faster in India than any other large economy in the world. I think online is growing much faster than offline. So I think we are in the most beautiful space we can be in for BPC globally, right? And then you have a sharp idea. You're very clear on who your consumer is, what you want to build. I think you should go for it. There's always room and opportunity. I think being very sharp is very important because what you want to do is very difficult to answer, and who is the consumer is very difficult to answer. As long as you can answer it and then solve these consumers' need effectively, I think you can build a beautiful brand out of it. And I think once you hop on to the journey, and then again that fire in the belly that you have to do it, I think you find your way, right? And I think now the ecosystem is very mature. The infrastructure is available. A lot of knowledge is available. A lot of tools are available. I think a lot of folks like us are also available to give a lot of advice to these young entrepreneurs who have that fire in the belly. I think this can definitely help them achieve their dream. But it all has to come from them wanting to do something and be at it consistent for years.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, non-negotiable for anything successful that they want to build. It's not a blip in the ocean. It's not like you can't do it in a month. You can't do it in 6 months. It's always a journey, right? For us, we became known over the last 3 years, but we've been building it over the last 7, right? So I think the journey of learning, growing, building is beautiful, and the space is the most beautiful space to be in the world right now, especially BPC in India.
I love that. And if I'm choosing between raising funds and not raising, what should be my mental model to do that?
So I talk to a lot of my founder friends, right? Some of them are bootstrapped, some of them are funded. And I realized the bootstrap ones are always happy. They are never in a hurry. Yeah. They are very clear. They're loving what they're doing, right? And some of them are building beautiful businesses, which are profitable, growing well, making phenomenal products. And they come and ask me, Suyash, should we raise money? And I was like, if I had an option, I wouldn't raise money, right? If you raise money only under a few circumstances, for example, your business needs the money because you need money to grow, you need money to buy stocks, people, marketing, right? In the short term, right? But in the medium term, you have to make it profitable. Yeah. The second piece is like you want to actually cash out part of your business because you want to buy a house or something. Or third thing, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, then you should just take a PE or VC or strategic exit. And I think you should just do what you're doing as long as you're profitable, you're able to do something. And there's no point being cool and raising money. It's always better to do PR with PR agencies and stuff to get your name across or get people to know you or use your LinkedIn profile. But the reality is it's hard to actually take PE, VC funding. There's a lot of responsibility. So if you can do without it, I think it's the best place to be. And you've done a better job than any of us that way.
That's super helpful. I think raise only if you need it is what I'm hearing. Otherwise, you'll be happier without it, and it completely shows. So that's super interesting. As an investor in other brands, are there any spaces beyond BPC that interest you? You think, these are spaces in which big companies will get built over the next 5-10 years?
I think very, very difficult question. See, the reality is spaces will always be there. Sure. But blue ocean or the clean spaces, untapped spaces will be available for only a very short period of time till someone discovers it, right? True. So you'll always have a 6-month head start, 9-month head start till someone discovers spaces, right? So I think spaces will always be there. You just need to be there at the right time, trying to find it, take the opportunity and push.
Sure. So you'd much rather take a bet on people as opposed to spaces?
No, so
I mean, when investing in founders, would you put founders ahead of the market itself, or would you say the market is very important?
see, I think both are important.
Sure.
Because the size of the market determines the potential of the market, right?
Sure.
So you always need to take a large market that can be disrupted. And then you take founders with probably the right kind of experience, right kind of attitude, and people who you can bet on, right? They're like horses. You have to bet on the right horse. Yeah. And obviously you need people in the right spaces to kind of invest in.
Sure. I like that fire in the belly a bit. I'm probably going to use it.
Of course. I think fire in the belly is very important because, there was a time for me personally, right? I had to pivot from my family business to this business, right? And the family business is probably 40 times the size of this business, right? But this was our baby, right? Anisha and mine, which we wanted to build out, right? So the reality was that you can't be in two businesses beyond a point. You have to choose one. Yeah. And if you're in two places, you are in no place, right? You're nowhere, neither places. So we took a pivot of actually moving to Nykaa because that was our baby and to build it ourselves, right? So unless you have the fire in the belly to build something and to reach a goal, it gets very difficult to build, right? So I think that clarity of thought of building and do whatever is required to get the job done really puts you in the right place for success.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. As we go on to the conclusory aspects of the conversation, Suyash, I'd love to know a bit more about your maybe personal founder persona. This is a series of similar questions that I ask most people on the show. My first question there is, if I had to ask your team to describe Suyash, what would they say?
I think calm, good with numbers, very clear on what is required to be done. I think always motivated and a great team player.
I love that. That encapsulates so much of what a leader is. That's great. The flip question here is, if I had to ask your friends to describe Suyash, what would they say?
Drunkard.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
No, I think friends call you different things.
Yeah.
And the reality is friends still know you from the time,
which is very old. Yeah. They know different versions of you.
Yeah. They know the original versions of you.
Sure.
Of not being an entrepreneur. I think all of that is irrelevant for friends.
Sure.
But I think a great friend, loyal friend is something that they know me as.
Lovely. That's super. One of the other things that I've realized on the podcast is that no founder journey is very simple, right? And we've heard the glorious things right now. But what are the difficult parts of the journey you're not telling us about?
I think that there are times in the business where you feel like you can't do the business anymore, or the business is not working out, or I'm not figuring out the business, right? Or you might run out of funding. I think there are phases that you doubt yourself that you can even be a successful entrepreneur. So I think every entrepreneur goes through it. I think if competition does, I think I'm paranoid about competition. What the competition is doing, what's the next move, why are they doing well, identifying it, asking why. And I think I'm personally paranoid about competition. So yeah.
Any instances come to mind which you can share where you felt super rough but you came out the positive side? Like what gets you to the other side in those moments?
I think sleep. But apart from sleep, I think I always take a defeat as a learning curve, because I do feel that whatever lows you are today, it's the lowest point it can be. It's only moving up from here, right? And every time I've told myself this, when I get up, I feel like, oh damn, I can only look north from here. So I think staying positive has significantly helped always. I think my wife Anisha, I think she really motivates me, and she really gets the best out of me, right? As a husband and as a partner in business, I think she really helps me get out of a mental block from something which hasn't happened positively. And I think my team, like every time I look at them, even if I'm low or things are not going my way, looking at them, they feel like we've done much worse and we've come out of it. What is this for? So I think collectively that's how I come out of it.
That's awesome. I think all of those pointers are really lovely to note. You mentioned about Anisha and building a business with your life partner is a very interesting thing, right? Like it's outside and feels like a, I don't know, interesting thing to navigate. What has that experience been like?
I think you should ask her about this.
For sure.
I think it's always great and difficult. I think you understand each other very well. So as partners, you always are hand in glove in a way. Whenever you're taking a decision, you absolutely in the same page. But sometimes, business struggles really come into the bedroom, which makes it very hard sometimes. There are different ways we tackle certain business challenges, which sometimes can come in conflict with each other. I think time spent with each other as husband and wife sometimes typically get impacted because you talk business way too much at certain point of time. And I think maintaining that balance becomes really difficult over time. And I think for us also, it's been difficult, right? It's not easy. But it's always a beautiful feeling when you've created your first baby together, right? And that is very, very interesting. And you have something to talk about apart from everything else, your business and how you can nurture it, build it slowly. And I think that piece is beautiful. All in all, I would do it again, but I don't know what Anisha would say.
I'm sure, but very exciting. I think goes to show how far you've come in your marriage as well as building the business, and that's a great thing to notice. If you weren't doing this, Suyash, what would you be doing instead? Like in a world where .Key does not exist parallelly, what would you choose to do?
I think I would still be in a family business of real estate. I think making projects. I think I would really love doing pretty interior decors, clubs.
Nice.
I think customer zones, landscaping. So I think I love design. I love all things that look great.
Lovely.
So I think I would do that, but like in a real estate building architectural line, rather than doing it in beauty and to build more beautiful,
Got it.
healthy people. Yeah.
That's super nice to hear. For the last question, Suyash, I think this is a standard question on the show, but we usually turn back time and go to the day you started the company. So if I had to ask you that, you could go back to day zero, .Key, what would be things that you would tell yourself? These are not about things that didn't go well or things that did go well. It's just to encapsulate the 7 years of learning that you have. If you can tell yourself on day zero, what would that look like?
I would say stay calm, stay focused, stay consistent, but keep walking. Because the reality is that in the consumer business, as long as you're walking, you'll keep growing.
Lovely. Keep walking is a great note to end on. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Suyash, for being on the show. I have personally learned a ton. And as I was telling you at the start, right, this is like any other coffee that I've had with you. And I always learn so much when I'm talking. Thank you so much for doing what you do, for creating the brand that you have, and for being on the show.
Thanks, Jivraj. I think you're a fantastic host.
Thank you so much.
And I love the conversations with you.
Awesome.
Hello. If you made it this far, you've probably watched the entire episode. And if you've done that, I'm really grateful. I and my team try to put in a lot of effort to ensure that we can bring the best quality content to you. So if you liked the episode, if you watched it thus far, my request to you is to share it with people, to subscribe to the channel, and to ensure that we can keep growing. We are everything and anything only because of you, our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll keep bringing to you amazing content. Cheers.